Oh, let's stand for our prayer, followed by the pledge, please.
Father in heaven, we come before you this evening, Lord God, and we just humble ourselves before you because you are awesome. We thank you, Father, for the blessing and the opportunity that you give us to come before the Creator of the universe through your Son, our Savior Christ Jesus. We thank you, Father, for the commitment that you call us to serve you in each capacity that each individual person is called to serve you in. We thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening to do the work of the school district and service of students and members of this community. Father, we thank you for the health and mental capacity to carry out these duties. We just pray, Father, that your Holy Spirit will be here among us, lead and guide each discussion and each decision that we make this evening. We'll be sure to thank you, praise you for the outcome. In Christ's name we ask all of this.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the July 1st, 2019 school board meeting. Public comment? No public comment tonight. Thank you. Consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I make the motion to approve the consent items.
We have a motion by Mr. Alford, second. Second by Mr. Daniels to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion or questions? By a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? 5-0, Becky. 5 items for individual consideration. 5.1, student field trips out of county. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, the first item that we have is for the Madison County High School cheerleaders going to their annual camp at Valdosta State University. We are recommending approval.
Is there a motion to approve the student field trips out of county?
I make the motion to approve student field trips.
We have a motion by Ms. Williamson, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Any discussion or questions? By a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? Becky, 5-0. 5.2, Code of Student Conduct, public hearing. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, a couple of notes I need to make about the code of conduct. When we first went through the process of presenting the code of conduct, Excel was still in existence. And that's the way we advertise it. So I didn't want to change it on you, but before it goes to print, on page 13 and 14, we have the name Excel. And in the meantime, the 2 principals where Excel will be located, they've come up with collaborations from some of their co-workers. They've come up with a new name for it, and it's going to be the bridge. They will present to you at next board meeting, but the Excel will be removed and the bridge will be inserted.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. We'll open it up for public hearing now. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the Code of Student Conduct?
I make the motion to approve the code of conduct.
We have a motion by Mr. Alford, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any questions, discussion?
We need to add noted changes. We need to add noted changes.
And we'll note the changes in the,
So the motion was to approve it with the changes?
with the changes.
Yes, sir.
By a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? Becky, 5-0. 5.3, requests for extra hours.
These are
Ms.
some
Joseph?
extra hours that's being requested by Ms. Newman, and they will be paid for out of IDA funds, and it explains what they're gonna be, the work they're gonna be doing, but it's not coming out of general fund.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve requests for extra hours?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the request for extra hours.
We have a motion by Mr. Daniels, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Any question or discussion? By a show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? Becky, 5-0. 5.4, school resource officer contract. Ms. Joseph?
The school resource officer has been worked on a lot by Mr. Killingworth, and he has been working with Mr. Richardson, Officer Richardson. Anything else you would like to say about this?
You know, and the contract, for the most part, is going to be the same, other few tweaks as it has been in the past. So there's, it's pretty much the same.
So there's still, like, when they do games and board meetings and things like that, that comes from their comp time because they're 12-month
Yes.
people?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And Mr. Killingsworth, I'm missing our resource officer here.
Yes. I see that.
Yeah. We'll have to continue with that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have a motion to approve school resource officer contract?
I make the motion to approve the school resource officer contract.
We have a motion by Mr. Alfred, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Williamson. Any questions or discussion? By a show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? Becky, 5-0. 5.5, Jefferson Somerset NFCPC contract. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, that's a cleanup contract with Jefferson County Career Pathways. Mr. Stalldigger, is anything else you'd like to say about that?
It's for 1819. It's just again, it's part of the contract process with North Florida Career Pathways Consortium that wasn't completed, wasn't at no fault of ours or the district. It's just getting Somerset's people to sign it and get it approved. And I got it signed and approved last Thursday.
Okay.
And to know, we are not, next year, we are not the fiscal agent for Career Pathways. We're just trying to clean up a
Right.
bit.
It will allow us to invoice them for the services they received during the 18-19 school year.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no changes for budget processes, no changes of money or anything like this. It's just documenting what we've already done, or what we're doing.
That is correct. It's documenting the contract for last year, and they do owe us, I think the contract says $4,300.
Gotcha.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the Jefferson Somerset NFCPC contract?
I make the motion to approve the Jefferson Somerset North Florida Career Pathways contract.
We have a motion by Mr. Alfred, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Any questions or discussion? By a show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? Becky, 5-0. 5.6, job descriptions. Ms. Joseph?
For job descriptions, our coordinator, district director of ESC mental health, blah, 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 blah. She's resigning effective July 31, and you'll get that later on. But upon her resignation, we would like to make that job a coordinator again. And what we've done, we had to redo some things on the job description. We removed the mental health piece on that. And so it's back at the coordinator position for the ESC position. And those duties for mental health, we put it with the safety officer. And so that's not an increase in funds for the safety person.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph.
But the bottom line, the ESC position will be a coordinator position rather than a director position.
So we'll make a motion with the changes then,
To approve it.
to approve the changes. Do we have a motion to accept the job descriptions with changes?
I make the motion to accept the job description with changes.
We have a motion by Mr. Alfred, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Any questions or discussion?
I I just have one, which this may be coming, is in concerning the coordinator, it reports to the director of teaching and learning. Are we going to go back to the director, like a director of curriculum, teaching and learning?
No, that was our mistake. We had not corrected that line because we pulled an old job description. And no, we're not going back to any more directors because we're not asking for any increases.
I'll change that soon.
Okay?
Thank you.
The other, as we're discussing, that food for thought for Ms. Joseph, something for her to think about. I would like to see it move toward the mental health aspect, to have someone that we hire for the district that is like maybe a supervisor of mental health, and they report to the coordinator of mental health to actually hire a mental health worker that works for us. I know currently we're contracting with Appalachia, and I just think it would be a good thing for us to maybe hire someone that actually works for the district.
Okay. I will ask Ms. Roderick to look for a grant for us to do that when she crosses this hurdle with this big sweep of grants right now.
Any other discussion, questions?
And so again, that motion was with the
Yes,
change.
yes.
By a show of hands, all in favor of the motion, job descriptions with change? All in favor? Oppose? Becky, 5-0. 5.7, staffing table, Ms. Joseph?
On the staffing allocation, staffing table, basically we brought this to you a couple of weeks ago, but we've got a change. We were able, and the changes is noted on the high school's page. They needed another teacher. We did not have enough general funds to pay for another teacher, and their logarithm didn't let them do that. But we found some money in Title IV, so we're adding a teacher at the high school. It's going to be paid for through Title IV, and so that's the changes on the table.
Thank you, Ms.
No
Joseph.
increase in spending out of general fund.
Sounds good. All right, do we have a motion to approve 5.7 staffing table?
I'll make the motion to approve the staffing allocation.
We have a motion by Ms. Williamson, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Alford. Any questions, discussion? By a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? Becky, 5-0. 5.8, personnel changes, Ms. Joseph?
Personnel changes, we've had recommendations, administrative as well as instructional recommendations, as well as non-instructional recommendations. We've had a teacher to request a transfer, and we've had several resignation, termination, or retirements. Now, if you note, we've got asterisks by Ms. Starling. She doesn't quite have all of her certification, but we've gone through the process. And so she will not start, begin as a teacher until we get those in place. And the other two ladies, and one of them have been in today, they had to get their fingerprints and background checks completed.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel changes?
I make the motion to approve the personnel changes.
We have a motion by Mr. Alfred, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any question or discussion? By a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? 5-0, Becky. 5.9, request to fill vacancies. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, from our staffing table, we saw that we still have vacancies, and these are the different positions that we're asking for us to be able to advertise and fill, and the location of the field of the job. It's quite a few, but we're still moseying along quite well.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph.
One note I wanted to note, I'm asking you, can we start advertising for the chief finance officer we still have a contract with Mr. Barnes through September, through the end of September. We're not asking to put this person in place right now, but we want to start advertising time enough so we will be able to have a choice and not pull the first thing that apply.
I would like for us to consider, instead of chief, going back to director.
So you want the title change?
Well, I mean, I think it should be a conversation with the board
Okay.
that we have, because the chief is at a higher line of pay, and if someone new is starting a job and they know from the beginning, it's not like we're cutting someone's salary after they have the job.
Okay. So you want a director of finance?
I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know how the others feel about it, but I mean, I guess we need to poll maybe.
Like you said, it'll be a new person coming in, and so it wouldn't really be a cut in their pay, so I think that would be the time to do it if we're gonna do it. Ms. Williamson?
I agree.
Ms. Bell? Mr. Daniels?
The only problem with that is, I think you would shrink the pool somewhat. The applicant pool. Choice may be a little, wouldn't be as great. Anytime you shrink pay, or the pay is lower than the average, I say, if it's comparable to the other districts, and I think it's just my
The only thing I think,
The issue about it is the chief at the top end is 91.9, and that's getting very close to the superintendent's salary, and you can't be making, I mean, the district level directors, the top end is, would be 88, 4, and 90, but the low end would be 60 of where it starts, or 70. So, I mean, again, just, if we've just made these cuts, I think it's something we need to look at. I mean, across the board with all and for years, we had directors of finance who came to work as director of finance. It wasn't until recently we had a chief, any chiefs. Isn't that right, Ms. Williamson? I mean, it's a play of pragmatics of what we're calling people, but it does tie monetary to the name titles. There is a monetary increase to be a chief versus being a director or principal or coordinator.
and I think we have to keep in mind that the district is shrinking, and it's not like it was, and we have to always keep that in mind too.
One thing about me, I think the superintendent's asked for permission to advertise that position. If you're gonna change the position, y'all need to do that, of course, before she can advertise.
Right.
And you're gonna have to have a different job description to go from the chief to the director. So it may come down to, you may wanna see the kind of urgency we think we need on the advertising. Could you have a different job description for the next meeting and then start the advertisement next meeting? Would that be soon enough?
Yeah, we can do that.
So I think if that's the way you want to go, I think you need to get your job description next meeting, and then approve that in the advertising at the next meeting.
All right.
Again, if we were to get someone who's on the low end of the scale, it's not going to be a very big issue. But if you get someone who's coming in with 25 or 30 years experience, they're going to be making $91,000 a year with no out of the general fund. And with benefits, it's going to be well over 100,000. So that's the reality of titles.
Different titles mean different money. Mm-hmm.
So am
So
I
we-
hearing I need to pull this?
Pull that
pull that
position.
one?
I think what you could do is you could make a motion to approve all of them, but the chief financial
exception
officer,
of-
and then we'll bring that back next
Okay.
meeting.
I had a question concerning one more, and all the rest of them I'm okay with. Concerning the secretary, and I know back Miss Joseph wasn't here, but we made it pretty clear that as people retired from up here, that we were going to absorb it from within. And we have secretaries here at the county office, and we have secretaries at Central. If there is such a need here, that could come fill that need without us having to fill another position.
Ms. Hill, help me out. Were we planning on doing this internally to replace Ms. Hall? Or were we planning on advertising that in the open? I'm not sure.
Well, this is request to
Okay.
fill the position.
We were going to replace it initially. However, when we had somebody transfer, or actually somebody resign from the district office, the person who is going to leave Central School, that was going to go to Ms. Hall's position, actually filled the other person who resigns position. If I'm making any sense. Our assessment secretary resigned. The one from the Central School who would have possibly filled Ms. Hall's vacancy actually assumed the vacancy of the assessment secretary.
If I'm not mistaken now, when we were figuring in what we were saving, the assessment secretary was figured in that, and anticipating Ms. Hall retiring was in it also.
The assessment secretary was not figured in that.
Well, I mean, that's just me. I mean, again, it's easier to not feel something right now than to have to cut people.
Well, let me ask Ms. Joseph, is there a possibility of someone at Central taking this position? Can we look at
Not at
that?
Central. Central is down bare.
They're down to their,
They are bare right now. The person we have up here, and she's been doing double duty, the one that replaced the assessment person, because she was going out to the Central School and the secretary and part-time secretary here. We have no one at the front desk. And she was out today, and everybody, and the four secretaries that we have today have been having to fill in. And I'm keeping it as bare as possible. This is really, really bare.
For some clarification, we're down to one counselor at the Central School. And so because of having 1,000 students, that person has 2 secretaries. One is a registrar and responsible for record keeping. The other is responsible for MIS, which is the same thing that the high school has. And so that, I know we talked about, or there was discussion about secretaries at Central, but they did get cut a secretary. And so they have divided up the responsibilities. They not only got cut a secretary, but they got cut a receptionist who was working with student records. And so, yes, we have cut 2 positions from Central. And so I don't see where we could pull anybody from Central. This person is responsible for MIS and FTE information here at the district office. And we want to stay on top of our FTE, making edits so that we don't lose money. I think it's extremely important that we look at replacing that person. Yes, that person helps me tremendously in the role that I have in curriculum, but that's kind of a shared position with MIS also.
thank you, Mrs. Hill. Any other, well, let's,
I mean, I understand that, and I'm all for giving the person what Ms. Hill's need. I mean, I believe what she's saying, but I just want it understood that when we have to make cuts, if we have to make cuts, no one here needs to complain that we're not gonna do it, because we're gonna have to do it. I mean, we're not knowing what's ahead of us with what we may have to pay out.
I understand. Any other comments?
Well, what we're hearing now, though, from the district staff is that everybody's already
They're
spared thin and stretched thin, and we're saying as of today, that one position should be an exception. That's my thoughts.
Any other comments from the board members?
I just agree with Mr. Reginald. They're saying that they're at the bare minimum right now.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the vacancies with the exception of the chief financial officer?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the request to fulfill vacancies with the exception of the chief financial officer.
We have a motion by Mr. Daniels, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Any questions? Discussion, further discussion? All right, by a show of hands, all in favor? Oppose? Becky, 5-0. Other items of interest? Superintendent's item, Ms. Joseph?
Okay, we finally got the trim calendar with the draft removed, so we have some specific dates we need to meet. We're gonna need to meet July 22nd. We're gonna need to meet July 31st and September 9th.
How does the board feel about those dates? Mr. Williamson?
I won't be able to be here on the 31st, but the dates are fine. I don't think we have much leeway on
No,
the
we don't,
dates.
I mean, about your attendance. Ms. Bell?
I'm fine with it.
Mr. Alford?
It's fine.
Mr. Daniels?
We just need a quorum.
Yeah. That's right.
I'm gonna say the 31st, I'll be out of town, but I should be able to make it back by 6.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Joseph,
Okay.
we'll be here.
Thank you. The next thing that you had this information posted, this Care Dogs Health in Schools, what they're doing, they are providing free flu shots for all the students. They're doing this in conjunction with our health department. It doesn't cost us anything other than the space for them to come in and set up a clinic, as well as we will help them advertise and send out notices. But the shots will be given with parental permission. It's gonna be a free flu shot for all the students who wish to have a shot.
And who's doing this, Shirley?
It's Care Docs in conjunction with Madison County Health Department. It's going through our school nurses. And so they will be using Florida standards.
Sounds good.
To approve.
That's just information
Just
for you
information.
because it's not costing us anything. When we send out advertisement, I'll keep you in the loop.
Mr. Reeves?
I had a couple things. The first is, I don't know if y'all remember, but we are presently in a lawsuit by Ms. Tina Johnson against the school district. Ms. Johnson was a past board member. Ms. Johnson was removed by executive order of the governor, and then after the expiration of her term, her criminal charges were dismissed. Ms. Johnson has filed a lawsuit seeking back pay and benefits and all of that. Our insurance company has hired an attorney to represent the district, and they're proceeding with that. His name is Mr. Scott Siegel. He's an attorney out of Tallahassee. I was contacted last week, and they are, the other side and Mr. Siegel want to have a mediation, and that mediation is obviously an attempt to try to settle the claims. What I would need and what I'm requesting the board do is for us to have a special closed-door litigation session, which we're allowed to do under Florida statutes. Under that litigation session, it would just be the superintendent, myself, the 5 of you, and a court reporter who would take down everything, and we discuss the case and get your feedback on what y'all, think about it and that sort of thing. You can't make any decisions, you can't bind anything to anybody. And then we would, from that, I would go to mediation for the district. Now, as a public body that's governed by the Sunshine Law, no one at the mediation can sign anything that binds the school board. What they can do is they can sign an agreement that we agree to bring back and present to the school board and recommend to the school board. But the school board would have the final say on anything that's done in the mediation. So anyway, that's the reason I want to have the attorney-client session. But the law requires that I tell you in a public meeting that I need that session, and then we'll go ahead and set that up. Depending on when they want to do the mediation, it will likely be at the next school board meeting. We'll just do it after the close of the meeting.
After the meeting.
And then if we have to do it earlier, we'll call, but I don't think we will. I think we'll do it at the next school.
July 15th.
Yes, ma'am.
So when would you like to do the meeting, Tommy?
Here, just,
When?
July 15th at the next school board meeting.
Okay.
I think just at the end of that meeting, we can go into a closed door litigation session. And unless anybody's got any questions of that, no, we don't. The next thing is, you all approved the charter contract at the last meeting with the, it's the Twin Oaks folks.
Wayport.
I'm sorry?
It's Wayport.
Wayport.
Academy.
Under Florida law, we have to have a proposed contract to them within 30 days. That falls out, that's July 17 is when we have to have that to them. That's not something the board has to vote on. I'll just prepare that and send it to them. And that, again, nothing binds the board until y'all vote on it. But we prepare that, send it to them. They have a chance to look at it. They can, we start negotiating back and forth. And then we would go ahead and bring that back to the board for ultimate approval. So that process is going to be starting, just so y'all are aware of that. And if you look at, under the attorney items, there's another, attached a proposed agreement. And the reason for that agreement is this. There was an incident where the district overpaid several staff members based upon, I don't remember the name of the grant. What's the name?
Biggest and brightest.
Best and brightest.
Best
Best and brightest. There was a miscalculation, and the superintendent, Mr. Stallnecker, can tell you more of the details. But at any rate, there was an overpayment of salary. Now, when there's an overpayment, we're required to get money back when there's an overpayment of salary. What the staff is, we're trying to, and obviously we're trying to do this in the most painless way possible for staff. One way that we came up with, and what this agreement is about, is we figured a relatively painless way, although none of it's painless, but a relatively painless way would be if everybody agrees, then the district can dock sick time. And so that way it doesn't take anything away from anybody's check, but it reduces their accrued but unused sick time. Now, we can't do that unless the employee agrees, but I think Mr. Stallnecker's contacted most of them, they would agree to that. And so that's the way we were going to handle it. I don't think we have to have board approval for that process, but we just want to make everybody aware so there's no surprises there. And that's how we're going to handle it, is do a reduction of sick time rather than docking people's pay or whatever. And again, everybody's got to agree. We can't just dock people's pay because we didn't dock the pay. Everybody's got to agree to that. So unless anybody has an objection, that's where the problem is.
I don't have any objection. And Mr. Sam, if someone doesn't have enough sick leave to pay back what the overpayment was, will that be spread out over a period of time to have to pay back?
That would be a decision Mr. Barnes would like to make. I'll assume something is, yes, ma'am.
Because I would hate
We've
for
done that in
it,
the past.
I'd hate for it to all be just, if there was anything to pay back, it'd be at one time, that it
We're
be
trying to make it as little
spread out
pain
over the
as
year or.
possible. Yeah.
Last
Painless as
discussion we
possible.
had, it would not be a direct 100% at one time.
Good.
The danger is, though, of course, if you spread it out too long, well, what if they quit?
Right.
And now they've gone and you haven't got paid back. So, like I said, you wanna make it as little pain as possible, but
Right.
you do have to try to get it on pay.
Well, I would
Well,
hope,
usually when somebody quits, we have to do that. They get some pay at the end anyway, so
Yeah, that's true.
hopefully that wouldn't be a jeopardy.
I would hope in the future, the next time that we have to assign such large quantities of money, that we double check and do not have this happen again, because this is bad for the employee, it's bad for us. It's something that we have to deal with that we had no control over, and it's not fair to the employee. I mean, it's one thing if you're talking $100, $200, it's another thing if you're talking several $1,000s. And that's what we're talking in some of these instances, and I just feel that should be double checked or triple checked before it even goes out saying that you're getting that amount of money. I would hope it would be anyway.
Anything else, Mr. Reeves? No. All right, board members. Ms. Williamson?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Bell?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Alford?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Daniels?
Happy Fourth to everybody.
Thank you.
Stay cool.
I got one other thing. The FSA scores and Pearson scores came back, and Ms. Hill's gonna do a brief summary for you of the FCAT scores, FSA scores.
If you'll look on the TV behind you, these are very recent scores. They came in Friday. Ms. Joseph and I came and worked on the scores, trying to determine, how we looked. For our ELA grades 3 to 5, the district average this year went from 47% who were proficient to 45, so we dropped a couple of points there. In grades 6 to 8, we dropped from 41% proficient to 40. And in grades 9 to 10, we dropped from 39% proficient to 32. In the area of math, in grades 3 to 5, we dropped from 54 to 47% proficient. In grades 6 to 8, we actually went up 3 percentage points from 44 to 47%. And then we went up in our percentage of students who were proficient on the algebra EOC from 39 to 40%. Our geometry EOC average of students who were proficient dropped from 38 to 36. However, our fifth grade science scores went up, and we went up from 38% proficient to 42%. For our eighth grade science, we dropped from 42% proficient to 39%. And I know you're going to see the big drop in biology, and I'll explain that to you in just a second, but we dropped from 60 to 39% proficient. In civics, this year we dropped from 67 to 55% proficient, and in U.S. history we dropped from 54 to 47% proficient. For the biology, we had a big change this year. We made a decision as a district to move the biology course back to the high school for high schoolers to take. And so in the past, we've had our advanced eighth graders taking the biology exam. This year, we did not have any advanced students taking the biology exam. And so, because the advanced eighth graders won't take biology until next year when they're in the ninth grade at the high school. So that score, we should see a difference in that score next year. That score should go back up. We had a lot of areas where we saw some decreases, not necessarily major decreases, but a couple of percentage points here and there. And so our scores as a district did drop, and we're going to be looking at that data and trying to determine why that happened. We did, have a few places where the scores did go up, but overall, we have some work to do on trying to get those scores back up. Any questions?
I think that we as a board, need to have a workshop where principals come in and tell us their corrective action plan of what they're planning to do to improve this, because I looked at the scores and compared them with last year's scores, And there are some decreases. And the scary thing about this is when in third grade, 31% at Central is at 31%, and then at 10th grade, you have 24%. We should be, I mean, those are low scores. And the other, and I don't know if this is true, I heard it, is the level 3 next year not going to be the proficient area? Is it going to be higher than 3 or?
No, 3 is still going to be proficient.
Okay, well, I had heard that that it was going up to higher.
No.
But again, it's very concerning scores, and we need some type of plan, because in looking at them, I mean, I guess in looking back, these are some of the lowest scores that I've seen in a long time at some of the schools.
Yes.
I like,
Some of them did well. I'm not taking away from some of your schools did really well, but they're still pervasive low scores. And what you think about the outlying schools may have only had 1 or 2 classes to be graded, which again, that could be the flip side of that, is if you have a class that's maybe not as strong as with a bigger cell size, you could be in trouble. But to have multiple grade level classes and still the average be 23%, and that's not saying that all the teachers at that grade were that. You may have had some that were 70 and 80, but you also could have some that were below in the single digits. I mean, it's, and again, it's just very low.
I would like to ask
Yes,
Mrs. Hill.
I agree. There are some areas that were lower, some areas that were higher. For example, at Central this year, their third grade proficiency is higher this year than it was last year. So we see some movement there in the right direction. Is it where it needs to be? Absolutely not. But we are seeing some movement. At the same time, we saw some drops in a couple of grade levels, mainly in the area of math. And that's something that we're going to be really looking at and trying to figure out the difference this year and last year. So there's going to be a lot of time spent between now and this point in time next year with focusing on data, going back to the drawing board, and making sure that we get those scores up.
I like what Mr. Alford said about bringing in the principals, because they may have an idea of, now, what happened? I mean, what can we do to elevate these scores? What aren't we doing, or what should we do? And I know that you've been around a long time, and some of us have, but what is the answer? You know, it's just, I think our turnover in teachers has a lot to do with it. I think we have such a large turnover, and they're not here long enough to actually understand what's going on, and then they're gone. That, of course, has got to contribute to it. But it's concerning to me. It really is.
If you look back longitudinally, I mean, the highest we've probably been at Central was in the 40s, maybe 50. But when you start hitting at 19, 20, 22, that is low, saying that at that grade level, only 22% are proficient. And again, not saying that you don't have teachers doing having great proficiency, because I know you do.
Right.
But again, on the flip side of that, you also have some that do not, or you wouldn't have the 22%.
Right. Oh, and I'm glad the board is concerned about that, because we had those same percentages the last year and even lower the year before. And so we've got to make a turn somewhere. We put a lot of things in place last year that got us at Central, up to a C. And so, that we kind of started the ship. Central is a big ship, and it doesn't turn quickly. I know that part of the focus at Central this year was trying to beef up kindergarten through second grade to try to get students more prepared for third grade, so that the third grade teachers aren't feeling like they're not going to be able to get them proficient. And so, there's got to be a multi-pronged approach. And one of my fears is that, because of our financial situation and we have cut back so much, I hope that doesn't negatively impact the instruction going forward. And so, but the finances are where they are. That's not something we can control. It's what we have to deal with. But we're just going to have to work a little harder.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hill?
When will you have a guesstimate, or when do you expect the grades to be out?
The grades last year came out the third week of July, and we're expecting about the same thing.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill.
Thank you.
Going back to board member items, I've been approached by several people, and I want to present something to the board. As you know, we have an elected superintendent right now. And it's been brought to my attention, there's some interest in having maybe an appointed superintendent. And I'd like to have Mr. Reeves explain the process.
Sure. In Florida, every county has a school board, every county has a superintendent. A superintendent can be elected or it can be appointed by the school board. Now, the way that's determined as to which way you're going to choose the superintendent is determined by the voters. So the voters can vote to have the superintendent appointed by the school board, or they can vote to not do that. And if there's never been a vote, the default position is the elected position. So so the board doesn't have the ability to change that. You have the ability to put the question on the ballot and let the voters decide. Now, if you wanted to do that, the way you do that is you have to approve a written resolution that says, we want the question on the ballot. The next election, and it's got to be a countywide election. The next election we're going to have, I believe, is in March. It's the presidential preference election that would be in March. And then if you did approve at that election, if the voters did approve an appointed superintendent, it would not affect anything about the present term of the superintendent. It would affect the upcoming term, so the term that would begin in November 2020. So if that's something y'all want to consider putting that on the ballot, what you need to do is you need to instruct me to prepare a resolution, have that, we'll have that agenda, and then you all can vote on it, decide if you want to have it put on the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I felt like I should bring that to the board's attention since I've had some discussion brought to me, and I wanted to take it to the board. Any questions?
I've also had people approach me concerning it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be up to the voters. They would decide, Ms. Williamson, how do you feel about it?
I don't mind leaving it up to the voters, that's the process, whatever the majority of the voters want.
Ms. Bell?
Let the voters decide.
Let the voters decide. Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, for resolution.
Okay.
I think we're in agreement.
So go ahead and prepare the resolution and we'll put it on the next agenda.
Would this process cost the board anything in the process of putting it on the ballot?
Well, it shouldn't, because it's one more question on an existing ballot. If we were trying to do a separate election and all that, the board would have to pay for the election.
But if we want to do advertisement, that would be at the board's expense?
Well, the board, well, it's a great question. I know with counties and cities, they're not allowed to expend money in order to take a position on a referendum topic. They can expend monies in general information wise, so they can give general information about it. I really don't know the answer as to whether or not school boards can do that. I'd have to figure that out. But the actual cost of the election wouldn't cost anything, because they're already going to have a ballot. They're already going to have an election. It's just one more question on that ballot.
Ms. Joseph, is there any way that you could have Andrea Messina come one night or Ms. Tina Pinkinson and see it, and maybe they could present like the pros and cons of?
Yes, I will
That'd
ask
be good.
her to come.
Yeah, I also recommend we take that approach as opposed to moving forward. Just kind of get all of the pros and cons and hearing, because I haven't heard it from anyone
I haven't either.
on that issue.
Okay, so hold off on the resolution, or go ahead and do the resolution?
When does the resolution have to be done in relation to this presidential election?
You've got lots of time.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Really, the limiting factor is that the supervisor of elections has to get ballots printed and all of that kind of stuff. So you really want to, several, months before
Right.
you really want to have made your decision. I would think, anytime in the fall, I think.
Okay.
I mean, so you've got time to think about it. Okay, so I think what y'all are telling me is hold off on the resolution. Y'all will tell me when you want me to do the resolution, and,
I don't want to campaign for either side, just, kind of be up to the voters.
Up to the voters. Oh, yeah, we're not pushing it, or, no, no.
Even if a
I'll get
resolution's,
Tina to come in and do a presentation
Right.
at a board meeting.
but even if a resolution's done, you could either go for it or vote for it or against it. I mean, it doesn't mean you're tied to it if it's
Oh,
done.
no, you're right. Mm-mm.
so prepare it or don't prepare it, or which one?
Well, I think we agreed, I mean, in the beginning, that we were, how does the board feel? Let me poll the board again. Ms. Williamson?
You can, I don't mind preparing the resolution. If they come and want to explain to the people the pros and the cons, that's, but we can still turn it over to the people to decide.
And we're not promoting this. This is not, we're not saying this is a good
Right.
idea at all. We're just saying we're putting it out there. It's up to the people to decide, which is what happens when you vote.
Why would we move forward preparing a resolution if we're still waiting to hear all of the pros and cons?
I don't want to make a
That's what I-
decision on the pros and the cons. I want to turn it to the people. The pros and the cons would be so the people would understand the benefits of it and the benefits of not.
Right.
We
Like,
should
we're not
know
going
the
to make a
pros and
decision.
cons. We should know the pros and cons. It's the people in the community.
Well,
that
why
would
bring
know.
in Andrea Messina then?
To say to we're on YouTube, so she could say to the people within the community concerning it.
And I'm just saying, I haven't heard from anyone on that issue. It's just new to me. That's my position.
I'm with you, Mr. Reginald. I haven't heard anybody say anything about it either.
Well, why don't we go ahead and have Andrea or Tina come and give a little presentation, and then because we can get back to this on the resolution. Okay.
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 And I had one more thing, and I'm sorry, I forgot to do this in my comments. We've had a complaint filed, and the complaint is from an employee or a former employee against the administration. When that happens, we have to get an outside investigator and hire one to come in and do the investigation. The last time we had that, we used an attorney named A.J. Decker. And Mr. Decker, I've contacted him. He's agreed to do it again. His hourly rate is $250 an hour. And so I would just need the board to approve me going ahead and retaining Mr. Decker to act as our outside investigator.
How does the board feel about that? Ms.
Decker's
Williamson?
fine.
Ms. Bell? Mr. Alford? Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
We're not adjourning, we are going to.
Oh, well,
Go in recess.
we're going to
recess.
Okay. We'll go into recess and preparation of our next
We've got a
part.
closed meeting.
We have a closed meeting.